It's not on yet. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
I don't know why the lights.
Good evening. 6 o'clock, so why don't we get moving? So the first item is roll call. Why don't I start, because I've gotten notification from several folks, and some absent seats. So absent this evening will be Bruce Rio. He had a conflict in his schedule. Matt Duval also had a conflict. Adam Lee is working hard at the State House, passing some good laws or killing some bad ones, hopefully. So he couldn't make it. The committees are meeting this evening. Heidi Bertel's not feeling well, and Ryan Bergeron's not feeling well. I'm John Cleveland, the chair. I'm present. We'll start with you, Rex. You can just say you're present.
Dennis Bergeron, present.
Tim Cowan, present.
Jeff Harmon, present.
Dana Staples.
Paul Jacques.
Rick Whiting, present.
Natalie Thompson, planning coordinator, present.
Phil Kroll, present.
David Hediger, present.
Carrie Willett, very done.
Allie Toby, very done.
Terrific. So the next item on the agenda is the minutes from our last meeting on March 25th, 2025. You all received a copy of that. Would anyone like to make a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Is there any discussions about the minutes? If there's no discussion, all those in favor of accepting the minutes, raise your hands. And Jane, you were absent. You're abstaining.
As am I.
Oh, and
Dennis.
okay, and Dennis. So with those two abstentions, the minutes pass as presented. Very good job on the minutes, by the way. So the next item is public comment. I see no one other than members of the committee here. So there's, we'll just make a note in the minutes that there was no public present this evening. So now that brings us to the next item 4 on the agenda, comp plan survey. You received a copy of that in your packet as well. So I'll turn it over to our wonderful consultants, and they can begin walking us through that. If you have some introductions, and then we could walk them down through each number, see if there's any comments.
Okay. So put together a draft community visioning survey. Purpose of this survey is to collect some broad community feedback across a variety of topics, serve as the public's introduction to this process to provide feedback. So want this to be a lower barrier to entry to encourage participation, and then subsequent engagement building off of this be to dig deeper into some of those results and be a little bit more targeted based on what we hear from the community from this survey through the inventory and analysis, and build the engagement from this point.
So now, I think the plan, based on the work plan, would be to get this survey out through several different means. Probably have it out for about a month until May, the end of May, something of that nature, and then we can tabulate the results. Would you like? Why don't I just start with each number and see if there's any questions? The first question is, what do you value most about Auburn? And there's A through M that they can choose from on that list. Can they choose more than one?
So we can set this up a couple of different ways, thinking that a select up to 3 or 4 options make people prioritize a little bit in this question.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
Push on your button, I think, and we can hear you.
Making it ranking, so that way we know what is more important to some individuals versus making them just select a couple.
Well, I think why don't you explain what you wanted to achieve with allowing 3 or 4 choices?
So similar to ranking, 3 or 4 forces a respondent to look through that list and say, what are the 3 or 4 most important things to me? A ranking option could get at a similar point. I think some potential challenges that we've had with ranking questions is that either somebody might not rank all of them, or when we receive paper copies back, they might not rank all of those, so just making sure that we're consistent with that data, but we have been able to work around that in the past.
We heard from another community, there were some concerns about the difficulty with responding to that question, the way it's set up. So I think that ranking actually provides better data, but it's just, we want to make this as easy as possible for people to fill out. So I think it's kind of for the committee to weigh those options.
So under other, is there a chance for people to actually put in something?
All of the other options, it doesn't show in the PDF version, but all of the others through the survey will have an open-ended box.
So does anybody think anything else should be included? Should any of the ones that are there not be included, or any of them changed? No, looked like pretty good there.
Actually, I have one thought. I mean, there's access to jobs here, but that doesn't tell you whether the job that they're accessing may be somewhere else. And that's, I just wonder, in thinking about this, how many folks live in Auburn but actually work somewhere else? So I just wonder if there's a way to get at that, because that could be useful information.
So there is, I can't recall where I saw it, but in something we were doing recently, it might have been in the census data, there is, there's data about the number of people commuting into Auburn and where they're from, and from Auburn and where they go to, and Allison or Carrie may know. My recollection is it was in the census data, but I'll have to go back.
And that data will be in the inventory and analysis document as well.
Also, in the demographic information, there is a question about asking if you work in Auburn or not, so that could help with the crosstabs.
Mr. Chair, I know the city services and programs, and I know in other questions we break out some of those services, but I wonder if, in terms of the value, have you broken that out into types of service, municipal, other communities, like public safety versus public works? I mean, you have parks and recreation opportunity, which is great. I just didn't know if that's, if you could speak to any experience you've done in the past, pros and cons for that.
Certainly in other questions have broken that out a little bit more. Can break that out a little bit further. I think some of the intent in consolidating that was to make the list of options not too lengthy, but if there's a desire from the committee to break that out a little bit more, we can certainly do that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I think if I remember in our team meeting, there was a comment that some thought that it'd be helpful to make sure that people know that we have these programs, quite a bit of programs in the senior class. And I think the idea was to make sure that they understood that that included seniors and not just younger folks who might be using recreational fields or something like that. I think it was trying to make sure it was inclusive of all age groups.
Right, I understand it from the perspective, I think it's,
Yeah.
I understand from the perspective of being inclusive, but what else are we trying to understand that seniors are? I mean, maybe it's every other category, so I wonder,
Okay.
I don't know, it just struck me as odd, including seniors, that Parks and Recreation, I think by default would include, anyway.
You want to add anything to what we're looking to achieve or information from that particular question or that choice?
Nothing additional. I think just calling out the senior center and senior programs that the city offers. If it makes sense to phrase that differently, we can look at that. Or if it makes sense to include senior programming as a separate option outside of recreation. If there's thoughts on that, we can look at that as well.
Do you have some thoughts, Becky, on how to?
I don't have an alternative, I just wondered why it was specifically listed with Parks and Recreation and not.
Mr. Chair, I actually was going to suggest, Allison, that we might separate that out. I think your points are really important. I think it kind of got put in there because there are programs through that department that are run, but I think there's a broader aspect that we could get from that if it's separated, so.
Separate, include seniors as a separate category.
Yes, thank you for clarifying. So Parks and Recreation's opportunity and then a separate line in senior programming or senior programs.
Okay. Any further comment or objection to that suggestion?
Mr. Chair, would we do that, because it's categorized together in other sections, so we probably should, if we're going to do it here, I would recommend we do it through those other sections.
Yeah, I'll have a section for seniors.
Correct.
Okay. Well, let's keep an eye out on that and to do that. And you guys will make the changes. Okay, any other thoughts on this first question? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the second question. What changes would have the greatest positive impact on you or your family's quality of life? And we have A through M again. Any
Point of order, is there value in going through every one of these questions one at a time? We've had a couple of weeks with this. We could probably just go through and see if people had comments.
Well, that's what I'm hoping they're doing.
Well, I mean, it'd probably take half the time.
Okay, well, I'll try to go quickly then here. If there aren't particular comments, we'll move along to the next one. I'm assuming you've had a chance to look at them, and if you have comments.
Mr. Chair, one it wasn't part of the previous discussions, but in terms of option H, more housing options, I'm wondering if people think of affordable housing as a distinctive enough option compared to a variety of housing options. I don't know if you've used multiple options, the wording wouldn't be just to simply break those out, but.
Question 4 digs a little bit deeper into housing need. What are your housing needs a little bit more specifically? And for this question, included housing a little bit more broadly. Again, looking at that priority of is housing broadly front of mind for that respondent.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Question 3. What do you see and your family's transportation needs changing in the next 10 years? You get to select all that apply. Kim?
Sorry, I work with surveys, so you can tell me to be quiet if you need me to. Selection E, I would like increased public transportation options to access parts of the city and the region. I see those as two very distinct things. I would open that up to consideration for the committee if we should separate those out.
You mean like transportation to another city, or to Portland, for example?
Correct, yeah.
Because we do have a pilot program going that provides bus transportation on a very aggressive schedule to Portland and back. But that,
Yeah, I might suggest that
Yep.
city be expanded to mean Lewiston, Auburn generally, because that's
Yeah.
where our current transportation service is provided, and
Yeah.
then intercity be broken out separately.
yep. Any objections? None? You make the change? Anything else? I'm not seeing any. Number 4. How do you see your household housing needs changing in the next 10 years? Select all that apply. Any thoughts on that question? Looking good? All right, next one. How do you think the city should prioritize investments in the following areas? This is a matrix, so high priority, medium priority, low priority should not be done. You got a list of items there on number 5. Everybody good? Okay.
Is that where you'd like to also separate out recreation programs and senior programs?
Oh, okay, thank you for noticing that. Okay. Other thoughts? Number 6. Overall, how would you rate your quality of life in Auburn? And there's a rating scale there. Pretty straightforward. No? Yeah, should be good. Number 7. Then number 7 is just ask explanation why they selected that. Number 8, excuse me. Rate your level of agreement with the following statements, ranking from strongly disagree to strongly agree. Includes an unsure option. Thoughts on this one? I thinking maybe it might be useful to include one in regarding homeless population, services for the homeless. This is something more that the cities are having to deal with, and frankly, Auburn has proceeded to do quite a bit with that. So it might be useful to see how the public feels about making services available for folks that are without housing. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Yes.
It's another area I had a question. There is adequate access to food in Auburn, I think. Do you mean
Yeah.
restaurants? Do you mean grocery stores? Do you mean food banks? Or how do you think the public would interpret that, I guess was my question.
We can add some specifics to that as well, but access to fresh fruit, groceries.
As opposed to someone's personal ability to afford some of those things. That the facilities are there for them. I'm wondering, maybe in this section as well, because we're dealing with services, I'm wondering whether it might be helpful to also have a question here that says, lots of folks would like more things, but when you ask them a question like, would you be willing to pay increased property taxes for them? It might be helpful to say, see how they feel about doing that. And it would be helpful, because I think at least it would give us a sense of a percentage of folks who say, yeah, I kind of like those things, but no, not more, or some will say, sure, I'll pay more taxes. What do you guys think? Okay with that? All right, let's add that in as well.
That's something we could possibly reword question 5, because I think we were trying to get to that point there, but it's not specific.
Oh, and put in question 5?
Prioritizing investments.
You think it fits there better? Yeah, okay.
Or to reword that to
Yeah, and prioritize.
specify, meaning investing your
That's fine with me. I don't have a preference, just wherever it seems to make sense to ask the question. Number 9, in 10 years, what is your vision for the city of Auburn? What changes would you like to see to make to achieve the vision? And then we have a number of questions here. You see any 1 through 4, 1 through 6. Anybody have thoughts on?
I was curious whether, these are sort of standard demographic questions. There's no question about gender. Is that kind of how these things are done, or is that not regarded as being significant for this? I guess I thought, you could ask male or, I know these are loaded questions at the moment, but male or female, or I choose not to answer. You could always give some options and then say, prefer not to answer.
It might be useful. It might be a gender difference in their thoughts. Generally, I find women are more forward-thinking than men sometimes. Kim?
I'll agree with that statement. Question 5, I'm curious, I know these are standard incremental, but for the purposes of this survey, do we really need to get that granular? I'm wondering if we could group that, or if, from your experience, could you speak to whether or not you think people would skip it with this kind of granularity?
We could look at consolidating a couple of those options. I think maybe like a less than 25,000, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, something like that. I think when we're looking at the results, want to make sure that we're able to understand needs and priorities of people at different income levels, and so have broken it out that way, but could look at some options to consolidate a couple of those.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I was going to suggest maybe looking at the HUD numbers, like 30% of area median income is extremely low, 50 low, very low, 80 low, 120%, sort of the missing middle kind of people that have trouble with housing too, but not as great as the very poor people. But
We use these categories because they line up with the census categories, but we can consolidate them and still be able to track whether the responses are representative.
Maybe folks might feel a little more comfortable if the income was a little broader in the categories. I had a thought on number 2. You have a list there of several kinds of housing. They own a home, they rent a home, and they live outside of Auburn. But it seems to me that in today's world, there's quite a number of different kind of housing groups together. People who are not related live together, some because they want to, some because they have to. Younger people sometimes are living with their parents a longer period of time, or move back in. So might be, so I was thinking something, live with family or others. Particularly, for instance, I think there's some thought that maybe students might answer this, so obviously they don't own or rent, would give them a category.
Would you like live with family or friend or something?
Yeah, family.
Family or roommate, maybe?
Yeah, well, I guess most cases, if they were living, they would be friends, I guess.
I do think an adult living at home with their parents is essentially a roommate too, so.
Yeah. Think about what would be a way to capture that. Catch that group of folks who are not either renting or owning. Okay. I think that's all of the questions under the survey. So we'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is student engagement. I'll turn it over to you, Ally.
Pass this to David if you want to start.
Yeah, sure. So I actually met with the superintendent and assistant superintendent, and I shared with them the draft engagement questions that you guys have in front of you, as well as some thoughts about how to get people engaged. Allie shared some ideas with me that I shared with both of them. Part of the concern is that school's wrapping up at the end of May with the seniors and whatnot, so we want to try to get some of them involved in this process as well as the other grades. So I left that meeting with the intent of getting connected with the principal at both the high school and the middle school, talking to them about what's the best way to get some of this information out there. I stressed that the need, as we have with this group and what we want to do with the public, is using the social pinpoint site, right? That's going to kind of be like our clearinghouse to gather all the information. You put your email in there so you get updates about how this is going to move forward. So that would hold true for any of the youth as well, right? They want to know what's going on. So the goal is to talk to the principals and principals at both schools and say, hey, what's the best way to get this message across to the kids? The thought is anonymity, am I saying that right? Remaining anonymous is probably going to be a big deal for the kids. So that's going to be a good tool, I think. So I'll meet with them to talk about how we get that out there. The sticky note activity they talked about, probably seen that before. You know, everybody just puts a sticky note up on the wall with some thoughts and ideas. They thought that would be a great idea outside both of the libraries. We just got to give them some direction. Do you put as many notes as you can on a sticky note, or is there a theme, or do we change this weekly or something like that? So we'll talk to them to get some guidance on that. Meet with the student council. One of the student council presidents is actually a student rep on the planning board right now, so I've already put a bug in his ear. And again, we'll try to connect with them so we get that group, a focus group, involved with that. And then the photo contest, another one of ideas Allie shared, and they were kind of excited about that because there is a photography class over at the high school. So, as you know, given the work that Barry Dunn's done before, you know, this is a document that has a lot of visuals in it, so it might be an opportunity to actually get some of the students to actually have that work in the plan going forward. So, we're going to explore that as well. All this needs to happen in May, so I'm hoping in the next week or two things will happen. So between myself and Natalie's hearing this for the first time, I'm probably going to drag her into this. I'm going to drag Jackie in the back room. I'm going to drag whoever can help me, because I think it'll take a few people to make this happen over the next 4 or 5 weeks. was a suggestion about reaching out to the Little League. I don't know if anybody knows anybody on the Little League here, like who the president is. Somebody gave me the name. I don't know. Actually, somebody was at the council meeting apparently about the Little League, so I'm gonna talk to Phil about getting a contact there. Might be a double whammy because we'll hit parents and kids. Again, I don't really know how that's gonna work, but someone made that suggestion. And then the Boys and Girls Club, because that's all the time. I don't know that we have the urgency other than I know we need to get a bunch of information to these folks. So that's the youth engagement plan at this point.
Good, good. It's, the plan, I know several people on the committee have mentioned and have said here that getting student engagement, they thought was important. I think it is. And you have a good outline on how to charge forward. We'll talk more about this and get it implemented and get them before they head out of school. Oh, we got a couple going, Rex. Yeah, that's a good suggestion, Rex. Tim? Oh,
Yeah, I noticed that the questions are divided into older students and younger students, and the questions aren't exactly the same among the two cohorts. So I wondered first, where is the dividing line between older and younger? Is the middle school the younger students, and then you mentioned Boys and Girls Club, so I don't know where that falls, but what is the dividing line and what is the strategy for the questions? Why are they different? That's the only question I had there. They're all good questions, but.
So this is just a bank of questions that we can use in a couple of different ways throughout the process. And the thought of breaking it into older students being like 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, and then younger students being more in that elementary school age category, knowing that they might be engaging with the town in different ways and things might be front of mind or they might be at a different stage. So being a little bit more just direct in what might resonate more with different audiences.
I like that 14 and up, they're really, like you said, they're engaged, often have some type of employment or service in some field or something like that, so they are going to see it a lot differently.
yeah. Jeff?
Yeah, so I'd raise the question whether we want to do anything or not, and if we do, what we should do about students at Central Maine Community College, leaving aside the dual credit. There's 4,000 students that are there all the time. Some of them live here in Auburn in the school year. A lot of them commute, but they're in Auburn all the time. And I don't know whether you've addressed that in the past and how we would segregate that data out so that we could understand more clearly their views on Auburn.
Also, there's a wider, there are a number of adult students. Adult. Dana?
Yeah, David hit this one a little bit, but looking at the previous survey and then looking at this survey, it just seems like the method that you use to collect the data is really important here. I know if I was a student and somebody passed me an 11-question open-ended free text survey, I don't know how much I'd do. So, just maybe give some options or some guidance on those things and make sure that we have a low barrier to entry to give some feedback here.
So not intended to be a survey that's handed out with these questions. I think, as David mentioned, with a sticky note activity or something like that, where there's a question posed each week, can strategically choose some of these to get at different areas that maybe one question at a time is pretty easy to respond to. If there's smaller group meetings with student council or something like that can use a subset of these questions to engage a little bit more. Understand that 11 questions open-ended is incredibly overwhelming, and
You've thought this through, thank you.
I don't know if I would want to sit and do 11 open-ended question survey, so
It sounds like a meeting in the box type thing.
we usually use around 4 questions for a meeting in a box. That's what we found to be a sweet spot for time and commitment.
Yeah, I think the idea is this is going to be an interactive kind of activity, opposed to filling out a form.
Mr. Chair?
Tim?
Thank you. I really like the question 7 under younger students, and if you were the mayor for a day, what would you want to accomplish? I wondered if you have used that in kind of that older age group, and if it's resonated or not in that older age group.
Haven't used that with the older age group, but that would probably have interesting responses as well.
Probably with the adults too, that, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking there might be.
We could debate which age group is going to be the most unrealistic, right?
So just 2 really quick thoughts. One is there a debate club at Edward Little? I just thought that some of these would really lend themselves to debate, and that if there's a club that wanted to do that for a project, it could be kind of cool and could engage actually the whole community. And the other is just to that final question about being mayor for the day. Bates used to have some sort of program where you could apply to be president for the day, and the president and the student would exchange places. So Jeff, you might need to go to, or Mr. Mayor, however I'm supposed to address you here. You know,
This is sounding pretty good. How about if I do this once a week, and I'll swap with them?
but it could have just a side benefit of getting some kids at the high school more, or wherever, more interested in municipal government.
Great thought. And David, we have 2 student representatives on the city council that might also be able to help you facilitate this work. So
Yeah. Rick?
Thanks. We have student representatives, which is great, but when I was in school, we had Student Government Day, and I got to be fire chief, and I got to be superintendent of schools. And I honestly think that there was a subliminal, thing happening in my head that actually led me into quasi-municipal government because I had that exposure. It was a really great program. I don't think it's happened for a long time, but it really was a good sort of career, stimulus program within the school department.
Yeah, get them thinking about civic activities, always good, I think. I noticed that on the older students, the number 4 and number 11 seem to be the same, and maybe your computer took over while you were trying to type.
Thank you for pointing that out, John.
Anything else on the student? Oh, Becky?
I thought you were just going to say how important that question was. It should be repeated. It was a trick.
Yes, but see if they answer it the same both times. They do that on surveys, Yeah, as you well know. Some people don't answer it the same. Their second personality answers it the second time.
Mr. Chair, could I add one more thing?
Oh, sure.
Just, David, I have found East Auburn School to be incredibly open to having things like this come in. The principal there last year, I think it was last year, we did a transportation project with the AARP grant. Was it last year or 2 years ago? And she was really responsive to having the kids come together and do these kinds of things.
Great, thank you, Becky. All right, so this will be exciting. Get the input both from younger and older people there. So I won't go through it, but there's a very detailed outline on community survey and engagement that has been crafted by the consultants that sort of lays out some timelines during May for a number of these activities. And they've thought about it in quite some detail. That wasn't in this packet, but I think an earlier one. Which I think now brings us to Community Pinpoint website is up and running. And I think we'll provide some overview of that.
Yeah, so the site is up and running for a little under a month now. Have had 166 unique visitors to that website, so individuals. And from those, 12 people have contributed to the site in some way, whether that's the email sign up, the ideas wall, or the map. So over the next month with the survey as well, we'll be looking to push people to that website to host the survey there, as well as encourage people to participate with the tools that are there as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been to it, but I think it's pretty well set up and provides a real opportunity for the community to see what's happening and to have some input. Jeff?
What's the, for lack of a better term, what's the marketing approach to this to drive people to this site?
So working with Liz Allen on that, so it's gone out on social media so far, and then have a plan over the next month when the survey is live to look at additional social media postings, sharing that in the Sun Journal. There's an Auburn weekend column there, flyers, physical copies of that survey, QR codes and postcards to be able to share that. And then Liz is also looking at some options for tabling as well to be able to attend events and share the social pinpoint site as well.
One of the things we asked Liz about, because it worked, because everybody showed up at City Hall, was the mail you guys got about the assessing and those postcards that went out. And from her perspective, it was rather reasonable, and it goes out to like everybody. So that's something we're talking about to figure out if we have a budget to make that happen, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so a couple other thoughts. One, I think you want to try to engage the Chamber of Commerce, because they have a very robust weekly circular that goes out to the business community. And Auburn Highlights, which is Turner Publishing, goes free to every mailing address in the city. And if we, they're always looking for content. If we give them an article, I'm sure that they'll put it in there, and that it gets really wide circulation.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts on how to spread the word? Okay. Good.
Mr. Chair, sorry.
Oh,
Oh,
Becky,
tonight.
go ahead.
I come downtown a lot, and the electronic billboard that's on the side of, I think I've watched people look up at that all the time in traffic, stopped in traffic there, so I think that's become very effective.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion as well. I think we did some brainstorming. I think it's on a list that we have. Other comments? That brings us to subcommittees. So we had talked last time about structuring some subcommittees related to the analysis portion, the inventory portion of the comp plan. At the last meeting, our choice was to use the suggestion that we clump them to 3 different groups or 3 subcommittees based on general related subjects. So 1 was the people and city services, number 2 was natural environment, and 3 was the built environment. So what we'd like to achieve tonight is see what your preferences might be of those 3 that you might be interested in serving them. we'll take notes. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't going to be others on the subcommittee, because we do want to bring in some subject experts or city committees that exist to deal with those subjects as well, but nice to have presence of members from the comp plan on the subcommittees too. Any volunteers here? Is this like the military? Everybody who wants to volunteer, take a step forward, and all the smart ones take a step back. Well, I have a volunteer. Heidi wasn't able to make it, but she would like to be on Parks and Recreation, the number 2 committee. So, being absent, she will be on that committee and get appointed. She shared with me, I thought was quite interesting, that in a previous career, she served in the National Parks Service, and she was a member of the National Park System, actually near the southern border. So she brings some experience. Dana, you have some choices? You have a choice?
I want to do them all, but I want to volunteer for the built environment.
Okay. Okay, Dana on that one. Number 2, we've got Heidi. Rex. So there's a built environment which, let's see, there's a natural environment and the built environment. Which one are you referring to? Or which? And that deals, water, natural resources, agriculture, land use, parks and recs. Okay, put you on number 2. Other,
You can put me down for that one, too.
number 2, okay.
John, I'd like the built environment one.
Built environment, okay, number 3.
Mr. Chair, I'd also like the number 3 special.
You want the number 3 special, okay?
You going with the regular or curly fries with that one? I'm happy to serve on the People and Services. Your first.
First one, people, okay.
I'd also like to serve on the first one, people in
The
services.
first one, okay. Thanks, Virginia. Becky.
I can't decide, so you can assign me to the one where you need people, but I'd prefer either 2 or 3.
Okay. I'll make a note of that.
Mr. Chair, I would prefer built, but I can go on something else and just consult on the built part with my expertise from that.
Well, we're actually doing pretty good spreading people around, but I'll make a note that you'd like the built. Okay, I'll just make a note of that. I will probably show up at 1 or more, so. Kelly?
I'd like to do all of them, but number 1, I think.
Number 1?
Start. Yep.
Okay. Good, we need another person there, would have been good. We got most of us all here, and we have some that are not here, so I'll send out an email to them and ask them to make some choices for themselves as well. Thank you. And then we'll round out those committees and get them formed and let you know what the structure will be.
John, do you think it would be helpful to, when you ask them if they would have a list of what people are kind of signed up for already?
Yeah, I will, so they'll know sort of where people are. We've got them fairly well distributed on the 3, so could add 1 or 2 more. but I will, I'll let them know that.
Could we just talk a little bit about
Sure.
what the charge of the subcommittees is? Is the subcommittee going to open up a chapter of the comp plan and make recommendations for that, or are we what problem are we trying to solve?
Well, I'm not sure we're trying to solve a problem.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna put you on the problem-solving committee then.
I'm already on a couple of those at work.
I think that a couple of objectives here is this is gonna be coordinated, first of all, starting with the inventory and analysis, so that each of these committees can take a look at that, have some chance to make some input. Maybe they think something more could have been added, or work towards understanding maybe a little bit of the analysis that they can have input on. And then I think that may well carry through when we get through to the visioning and the land use as well. Bring that information towards putting together the vision and the land use perspective, perhaps with the information about how that's impacted by one of these subject areas. I think and to bring other folks' points of view and put another set of eyes on it. Okay, no other questions about subcommittees. We get a SharePoint site documents, and this is for use by the committees. There was an interest by several that it's going to be quite a few documents here. And you'll get some of them in different groups and emails, so you'll have some of them that way. But it seemed to make a lot of sense to have a place where they were all parked, so that you would have access to them, wouldn't have to scroll through your emails to find them, and it'd be there, so you could go in and see what's there, and review them, where the documents are. So that has been started, I believe, or started to work on that, and then David, maybe you want to...
Everybody should have got an email today from Jill.
Yeah.
Jackie's been working with her to set this whole SharePoint site up. I think it's self-explanatory, but if it isn't, you can call me, call Jackie, call Natalie, but it's literally when you see that email, it says, there's a box on it that says open. Click it, and you'll get there. And right now, it's all the data that Jackie initially sent to you folks as a zip drive or separate emails. We tried it a couple different ways, but sometimes it gets kicked back because of email capacity and things like that. So to John's point, we have a SharePoint site now that we can put these larger documents in that you folks can view. So if you have any problems, just reach out to any one of us.
Yeah, so you probably want to put that in one of your favorites, so you know right where it is, just to go to it. And
Is it okay to reach out directly to Jill for IT support?
Sure.
Will do.
Are you trying to get?
Yeah. I tried to get in earlier. It said I didn't have permissions, so I requested permissions. Jill gave me permissions, and I still can't get in. It's kind of weird.
So,
Maybe we can look at it before you leave just to see if it's.
Yeah.
so David, we've run into this before. We've used SharePoint pretty extensively on different committees, and we run into this. There's always some people that can't get in. So to Dana's point, I think we want to be clear on who they should contact. Should they contact IT? Should they contact your office?
Yeah, I would contact Jill, because either none of us are going to be able to get you the access you're looking for specifically.
We'll have Jill send the same grouping, help support email. Then you can just go right on there. Then one of the techs will reach out to you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
yeah, that would be good, thank you. So you'll be able to look at documents there, because we want to keep all the documents the same, and you won't be able to edit them. you won't be able to edit the originals, but you can make comments on the ones that you download them, and you can make comments on, you can make some comments on yours or change yours, and you could share that. And this is and this point, this is only for the committee. This is not accessed by the public. They'll have their own pinpoint site, as we discussed earlier. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Having missed last month that you may have talked about this, but in terms of this SharePoint and documents, if we had questions, want a clarification, is there a process that's been established in terms of who we'd contact?
That's a good question. What sort of questions are you thinking of?
I'm not exactly sure. Like if I was looking at some documents and I wanted a little bit more insight or context around some piece of data, for example, is that something, what steps should I take in terms of trying to understand that?
Yeah.
Could be any kind of question, but
well, you ask a good question. Certainly, we're going to go over each of these in future meetings. In fact, we're going to have a first look at them in May, a draft, and then we'll look at them again in June and then July. So that's certainly be an opportunity to share those questions and the like, and Jeff?
Yeah, I agree with Tim. I had sort of a similar question, which is who's the owner of this site, right? Because it's very difficult if you create a site like this and put the information out there. If people want to suggest additional information, or we're generating documents that we think should be put there, who's managing the site? And then to Tim's point, if we have questions about the documents that are in there, where do we send the question to?
Well,
Is that to someone in David's office? Is that to you? What's the conduit?
well, they'll probably wind up in my lap at one point, somewhere along here. But so what I'm thinking of, David, and please chime in, but we're going to have another staff person who will be a long-range planner, and that person is going to take a lead role in this. And so I think, as we've talked before with the consultants, it's useful to have someone here in the planning staff sort of acting as a lead point here. And then that can be a point by which decisions can be made where those questions or documents need to go back and forth. Does that sound like an idea that might work?
That sounds like an idea that might work. I think, to the mayor's point, Tim's point, maybe there's two different things going on here. One is people's just general comments over the time, like, they have questions or thoughts, and how do they submit them through the process? And that's not just you folks, but the public in general. This started off by questions about the information on the SharePoint site, which is a bunch of data that we've provided Ally and her team with, from the rec department, from the police department, public works, those types of documents there type thing. So my thought is, if you have questions about those, great. I'm going to hook you up with the right person, because I can't answer those questions either necessarily, but I can kind of navigate that. Those will probably just be general questions. It'll be curious to see what kind of questions you have, right? Because it's going to be like, oh, the city has 150 miles of pipes. Okay, what condition are they in? All right, we'll find out. That type of thing. Versus like suggestions about, well, how do we, expand water lines into southern Auburn? That's a different time, I think, than what's in the SharePoint right now for information.
We have a Teams meeting tomorrow, so why don't we discuss more some of the details on how to answer this question in more detail going back, because I'm not sure we know the exact answer tonight. But
I think as you go forward, I mean, certainly if you have
Yeah.
questions about what you see on the SharePoint, I mean, send them to me, and, you know, we'll navigate through it and figure out what to, you know, how to get you the best answer.
Jeff?
Yeah, so that, the same conduit, I guess, at the moment would be you, David. So my thought on this is there's some people here that are working in this stuff every day, all day long. So if I'm in a meeting at Maine Housing and they say, hey, there's this great new report about housing and it tells you a bunch of stuff about Auburn and Androscoggin County, and we say, hey, that would be great, we should put that on the SharePoint. Right now, that's just send an email to you and say, hey, here's this, and you guys should consider adding this to the inventory data.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Because at some point, and I'm not sure when this is, there will be a cutoff, right? I mean, you know, so, but yeah, if anybody has an experience like the mayor's, and it's relevant information that helps us, send them our way, that'd be good.
And with your reviews of the inventory document too, when we get to that point, if there's things that are missing within that document that you know about too, flag those and we can discuss that data and
Yeah.
whether it makes sense to include that in the document too.
Yeah, and that's where some of us here or subject matter experts or committees may have pieces of that that would dovetail into that work that you may not be aware of at all. All right, any other questions on the SharePoint? Okay. So, next thing we'll talk about is meeting dates. I'm gonna have to move some. I just wanted to remind us of coming up meetings. In the May meeting, we're gonna be talking about introducing the initial inventory and analysis, subcommittee's approach to working with those, and we'll be following up on this engagement work that you just heard about this evening and giving you some updates. In June, there's going to be further inventory and analysis sections. Obviously, we can't do them all in one meeting. There'll also be further discussions about engagement and following up, and in July will be similar to that, and maybe there'll be a big general potential approach to future land use planning discussion. So just to give you a sense of the next couple of meetings. So in June, this space is not available on the 24th of June. I think if I remember correctly, that the 17th is kind of the only day in the month that there's availability here. That's a Tuesday night, I believe. The city's hosting some events here, I think, and that's taking up some of the time. How does the 17th look for folks? Okay. 17th it is. Let's see. In the May meeting is on the 27th, and we wanted to confirm that date is still good because I think it's the day after Memorial Day. And so, I don't know, people's schedules for vacation time is going to go into the 27th, or whether that'll be okay. Look pretty good? All right, we'll go with that. Anything else committee members want to bring up, or? No? Good. Well, thank you very much for coming. Really appreciate your participation. Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Is that moved and seconded? All those in favor, raise your hand. It's unanimous. Thank you again.